All right, hey everybody, it's November 4th, Flux late meeting, the late meeting. We posted the agenda, which there isn't much of yet.
Yeah, I can say a few things of what will happen today or tomorrow,
Okay.
hopefully today. We are going to do a patch release for Flux that includes some improvements to how we time out the Git connections. We had some issues in image automation controller and source controller around timeouts and the error message is kind of confusing. We don't know exactly, users don't know exactly what's happening, neither do us. So now we are setting out the timeout for the libgit2 operations, and hopefully that will make the issue visible in a way, and also connections will not get stuck. If I got that correctly, Hide. So what happens now is that connections are not closed.
I can explain it for a bit. What happened before was that libgit2 basically assumed that the remote side would eventually either fail because the connection was open for too long, or you would stop transferring your data either in or out. There were some comments in the C code, so not in the Go layer, of how you could utilize the callbacks to properly close the connection if you wanted to close it before the server decided that it should be done. So that's what we did.
Got it.
So we are now properly closing connections when they hit a timeout, and that should make the controllers more reliable and succeed the next time it tries if I don't know, the network recovers or something like that, right?
Yeah, got it. Awesome. All right, I tried to take some notes on that. I think I understand it, so I think I got it right, as long as my fingers worked properly. So taking the notes. But I suppose we don't really need the notes here solidly because we've got these all in Git anyway. But that's at least a high level for folks.
The changelog provides the best short explanation, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, other things that we should discuss a little bit is the fact that our installation guide is getting bigger and bigger. So I know Allison tried to reshape the whole thing and splitting those into smaller tasks, but that approach breaks our links, and we cannot respond with 404s, and because we've closed lots of issues, we answered a lot of Slack topics by giving those links. Those links are everywhere on the internet. So my suggestion would be to create from the install page a section. We are going to leave all the headings in the install page, so all the links will go, and from there we'll just, instead of having like the whole thing under each section, we could write like a small overview of what that means. Let's say customize Flux manifests, for example, high level description of what it implies, then a link to a dedicated doc that explains how you customize the Flux manifest at bootstrap time, install time, when you use the CLI, what you have to do, when you use Terraform, what you have to do. I know there is also a Helm chart developed outside of the Flux organization in Flux community repo. So maybe you want also to link to that and tell people, hey, this is not an official Flux distribution, but it's maintained by the Flux community. Right, so I think that will splitting the install page into dedicated task pages, but leave the whole structure as it is, will not break the links and also give people less things to read if they, and allow them to focus on what they really want to do. Because right now we have like all the things in there from, I don't know, bootstrapping for air gap systems. If you don't do that, you have to scroll over it and go to the upgrade and so on. So that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Kingdon, do you want to? Is that good for the moment, Stefan? For the things that you had on your mind?
Yes, I will also add the pull request link because we need to reuse things from there, but we cannot merge it as it is.
So
I will add it here.
I can talk about the next item.
Yep.
Yes, sure.
So we've recently merged a feature for the image reflector controller to handle AWS authentication for Elastic Container Registry using IAM roles from ambient credentials. So the documentation supports container registries for various cloud providers right now, with documented workaround to build a cron job to refresh a Kubernetes secret. And that this is a method that fits with the Flux security model, but it doesn't necessarily work too well with cloud provider native security model, because many cloud users are expecting that the account has a security boundary and that they shouldn't have to specifically authorize individual pods to gain access to container registry inside that account. So there's a lot of extra overhead for people who are using the account as the tenancy boundary, the hard multi-tenancy. So we have this new feature for AWS and ECR, and we don't have a matching feature for Google Cloud or Azure. So I'm doing some research to how we can provide feature parity across these different clouds. What I found so far is that Google has deprecated Google Cloud Registry, and it's a new tool called Artifact Registry. So I assume we'll need to support both. I don't know if that is going to complicate things at all. I don't think it will, but I haven't got deep enough to know for sure yet.
Whoa.
And
What?
Azure has ACR, which, as far as I know, hasn't really changed too much over time. But the Google Artifact Registry seems to be a new thing since August. So that may complicate things. So step one for me is to stand up the actual environments, which I'm trying to do with Terraform, so that I can stand them up and tear them down, and we don't spend too much on these resources that are just for testing. And while I'm doing that, to kind of document a little bit more end-to-end what users of Flux need to know if they're standing these things up with Flux or alongside of Flux for the first time. And I'm planning on deferring pretty heavily to outside docs because we shouldn't spend too much time documenting things that don't belong to Flux. But also, while I'm in there, I want to test out all of the existing docs regarding our cron job workaround. Probably will make getting started easier to just make sure that going through all those things still works and that I have all the prerequisites for those things before I try to do the native authentication. We'll see if they need updates in those docs. And also I'm planning on working with some Tochi to build out the new feature for both clouds.
Yeah, I think we have to, after that's done, we have to remove the cron jobs from the image automation guide completely, create a dedicated doc for that. And in here, just talk about, hey, you have to enable this flag. This is how you do it. If you are doing multi-tenancy where, you know, multiple teams share the same cluster, here is the link to the guide that tells you how to configure pull secrets for each tenant. And we can have the whole thing that's in here with cron jobs and deployments in that guide. Make sense?
Yep, that makes good sense.
Let's talk about web UI.
Okay. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start? Do you want anybody to start?
So,
I'll let
welcome,
Kindle do
Jonas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi there. Hey.
it.
So
Voices.
I want to introduce Josas to everyone who hasn't met before. He's going to be helping us with the Flux Web UI project. It's been a long time coming to get someone dedicated to work on this. I'm not sure exactly how we should explain or describe the work that's planned, but we know there's some maintenance issues that need to be taken care of because it hasn't received contributions for a long time, and Flux itself has moved in that time. So the web UI is in a sort of state of disrepair, although you can run it. It doesn't work with the latest version of Flux all that well, and it's probably missing important things in the UI that were present before when it was first developed. So
Yeah, so I see things in stages. For example, we need to update all the manifests in web UI to the latest Flux. Then when we are going to run the web UI for the latest Flux installed, it will no longer be able to render the customization resources. So in the customization page, we have a graph that renders what objects are being reconciled from a particular customization and the dependencies between them. See services, deployments, pods, all that stuff. That information will no longer be available to the web UI because in customization API v1 beta 2, we changed how we track the customized inventory. So we need to change the Go code that does that query. It's way easier now to determine which objects have been reconciled. We don't have to query the cluster. We just have to look at the customization status. So that will be like step 0, getting the web UI as it is working for the latest Flux 2.
So right now, the web UI is not showing all the dependencies or all the resources of a customization. Is that correct?
Yes. With the latest Flux, if you install the Flux from, I don't know, 5 months ago, it
So
will show up.
I went to the website and I installed Flux and I ran web UI and I saw the customization and I saw a graph. It only had one item, which was the customization. So that's the current state.
Yeah, that's the issue there, because we've changed the API. So the web UI has no idea where to look for and what to get there. The changes are, let's say, straightforward. If you are accustomed to how we build the Flux client and the CLI, I can help you if you want. I don't know, we can meet and I can give you some hints on what needs to be changed and how. So let's assume this is step 0. We update the code. We have the web UI working for the latest Flux. And afterwards, what I see us doing is get rid of all the duplicated API. So what happens right now in the web UI is that we have these protobuf objects. I'm guessing they are there for mapping the Kubernetes objects to this protobuf object, and the protobuf object binds to the interface, to the React interface, right? So the issue here is that the protobuf objects are a subset or some form of the original object, right? So instead of doing all that work and creating a parallel API in protobuf,
Sure.
What I think we should do is generate the protobuf stubs based on our custom resources. So instead of typing all that thing, we add a field, then you have to go into protobuf, add the field, generate everything, and so on. Instead of just you would import the new API package, run some code gen function in the makefile that will automatically convert the Go types to the protobuf type.
I looked at the code and I saw that all the interfaces are defined several times in different in different languages. So I can do that. I talked to Tamao and she said that I should not work on new engineering, but I can work on this if this is necessary.
Yeah. This is we have to get rid of the, let's say, all this duplication, because we cannot work on new features if we maintain this parallel API, right? So this will first, in my mind, simplify the API, the web UI development, and second of all, it will be easier for us to keep things on sync, right? Because
there is one source of truth.
Yeah, and reducing as much the need to, there is a field here, let me go and manually add it everywhere, right? We should just run a command, maybe in CI through automation or something like that, that commits the new stubs based on the latest API version. So that's one thing I've observed around how the web UI has its own parallel API that we could get rid of. And a second observation, we kind of have the same operations in the CLI and the UI. For example, in the CLI, you do Flux get customizations, right? And the CLI would list in a table in the command line standard out all the customizations and their fields. We chose some fields there, right?
Sure.
Now, the web UI does the same stuff when you go to the customization webpage, where it lists those things. Now, if you look at the code that does the listing in the CLI, and if you look at the code that does the listing in the web UI, like the code is 99% the same. The
Sure,
only
sure.
difference is, hey, I
Yes.
have to map to this
Yes. Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So what I think it would be best, I don't know if it's possible, but what I would like to have is a Golang package in the CLI project that can be imported in the web UI project, and you just call list customizations in the same way that the CLI does. It will return you the objects, right? So you don't have to.
JSON objects?
Yeah, it can. We can make the output of all these commands in JSON format. I don't know if JSON is the way to go. What I imagine, if we follow the current structure where we use protobuf, then these functions will just return Kubernetes objects. Then those Kubernetes objects will automatically convert to the protobuf stubs if we have a one-to-one match, right? So the Golang package will just return customization lists. Then that customization list, you'll bind it to the web UI through protobuf, or you will just, write it to standard out for the CLI or other things that you want to make.
So what web UI, I think I understand. You want web UI to just display the output of a Kubernetes or API, to put it that
object, yeah. And then basically it will call the same library that will give you a list of objects. Then in the UI, you want to show them in, I don't know, differently, or other, maybe the table there will have other columns
filters
and so on.
and UI elements to
search over
browse,
them and so on. Yeah, which the CLI doesn't offer, but both of them could use the same function to get page one of all the customization, let's say the first 100 items, right? And then you can have custom logic in the CLI, custom logic in the web UI around how you display them, how you filter them, how you order them, right? But what I think it will help us a lot is if we eliminate this duplicated code where we basically write the same query to the Kubernetes.
There should be a reason where you have TypeScript that redefines, the API interface. It redefines the same structure from the Kubernetes over. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, we could give this a try for, I don't know, list sources, or we pick an example from the web UI.
Yeah.
We extract that from the CLI. We make a package in the CLI for that. Then we use it in the web UI, and based on this experiment, we'll decide if this is the right way forward. Maybe it will not work. Maybe the differences are so, maybe there are so many differences between the two interfaces that's not feasible to have this common package. But I would really like us to try and see if we can do it this way, because if we can do it this way, then it's less work on the web UI when we add, let's say, a new feature, a new custom resource. In the future, we'll have, like right now, we have Git repositories, buckets, and Helm repositories, as these are the sources that we support. And in the future, we will have OCI repositories, which are a thing that calls out to container registries. Like what I hope it will get out of this refactoring is that once we add these new type of OCI repositories to the CLI, to get a page and a list in the web UI will be very simple. Instead of copy pasting all the query code, copy pasting all the API spec and so on.
Yes.
You'll just update some packages, do some small modifications in the web UI. Hey, I want now a new page for this type, and that should be it, right? Instead of coding everything from scratch. That's
right.
Yeah, but this is just some ideas that I have there, and bulletproof. I
So
don't know
this
if they
is
will
this
work.
is a little bit of engineering that Tomo said that I shouldn't be doing, but I can work on this a little bit and
Okay.
report to you.
Cool, cool. Okay. So yeah, first we have to fix the web UI. So we'll be, if we can get in touch, I don't know, next week or
Yeah,
someday.
that works. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'll try to have something to report next week, to have web UI showing all the resources that it should be showing, and then start work on generalizing the API so it can generate the stubs for the API, so we don't have to copy and paste fields from one to the other.
Great. Thank you very much for helping out with this.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to learn. It's good to learn from the masters.
Masters of puppets. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think my item is next, and it's pretty simple. Right? Did I miss one up here? I don't think I did. Okay, yeah. So basically, that I'm helping to work on updating the documentation, as Stefan knows, and I think some of you might know, we're updating documentation for Flux security, and specifically to fill the gap from the security review items. Some things we already knew, it sounds like, and some things that it may not have been top of mind. So what I just wanted to note that, or say that what would really be helpful to me in speeding that up and making sure that I don't miss something super important is I have an overall strategy from when I spoke with Stefan, you and I spoke before. It's a good strategy. It's the details that really get us here and matter, because there are a lot of different items in that list. So one of the things that would be really helpful for me, and I've reached out to Hida about this, who has time Monday or Tuesday, but is to do kind of another just collaborative discussion where I basically take copious amounts of notes based on our discussion around the topic. That way, there are many things in the minds of certain maintainers, certain people here that are very important things. Some of it's not only locked in certain people's minds, but some of it I think might be. So it's, or at least it would be the easiest path toward getting the correct details and making sure they line up okay. So I've had some pretty good success in the past with having these discussion / note-taking sections, and then I go and do the legwork to compile those notes and put them into a format that makes sense, and that's consistent, coherent, and all of that good stuff, keeping in mind the end user, and then those can be reviewed more quickly by folks that have the domain knowledge. So what I was wondering is, are there other people, I guess, from this call, maybe Stefan, possibly others besides Hida, who might have, I don't know, let's say a half an hour or something, sometime today or tomorrow. If not, that's totally cool. If so, that's great, and I'll schedule around it.
If we do it right after this meeting, it's okay with me.
Okay, I will just double check. I think I have a Helm Dev meeting then, but I will check in with you just to make sure. I think, actually, no, that would be perfect. I have a half an hour between that and the Helm Dev meeting. So yeah, if you have that time. All right, great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's really it for me.
Sunny, any news?
No, nothing new. I did that there's some release today, major automation and source controller.
How was the process? Was it hard, cumbersome?
It was easy, but maybe because it was my first time, so I had to think a lot to do it properly.
Yeah, if you have any feedback on the release process, I don't know. I guess you know about this document.
I read the document in the Flux 2 repository about releases.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Is there anything we can do to improve this? Maybe I was thinking, so when I first wrote this, my main concern was around Kubernetes packages, and if we update something, then we shouldn't run into problems with client Go and all the shared Kubernetes packages. But what I think, you should tell me if it's a good idea. At the upgrade procedure here, we have a section upgrade Kubernetes modules. Maybe it would be good to have a section upgrade Git modules. I don't know how to say it, where we describe the whole thing around how we build libgit2 and the new repo that Hide created, and describe the steps. Hey, you first have to do the modification in the base image here, then update source controller, make the release, then update image automation controller. So, I mean, let's take the scenario where we have to bump libgit to the libgit2 version, right? Would
Right.
that be?
I think that would be useful. I was thinking of the other thing, like in the package repository, there is a make target to help you release, but in other repositories, you don't have that. So there was a chance that I did not pull the latest code. That make target pulls the latest code and ensures that you're releasing the latest one. But in case of other projects, repositories, they don't have this. So I have to manually ensure that I have the latest code. There's a chance of mistake there.
Yeah, I have so many aliases on my machine. I have an alias called git tag that pulls the latest main and does all the things in the correct order. But yeah, we should definitely place that in our makefiles. It's my mistake. I relied too much on my local environment, and small things like this can make a difference, of course. So let's open an issue and add I don't know, make tag or however you want to call it. There is a difference between releasing something in packages in the package repo and releasing anything else. In package, we don't have change logs that are written by humans, right? We rely on the fact that we tag it, then you use the GitHub UI to compare the changes and look at pull requests. And that works because, package is internal and so on. But for controllers, Flux 2, Terraform, everything else, we cannot fully automate, right? You need, after you tag the API, you need to open a pull request and write down a change log that makes sense for end users. And that change log should be written in the idea that end users are not Go developers. So I don't know, telling them, oh, we fixed the nil reference, that doesn't say much at all. We should say, hey, when you have this error, we fix this error, and this is how. Like in the changelog should be written in a language for end users and not Go developers or I don't know, advanced Flux users. So that's why we require this manual step everywhere.
It can be improved though, a bit.
Sure. We have many leftovers in terms of automation around releasing. We still have to bump things manually, like the Azure tests, like I don't know, Terraform version, many things. But Hide, do you think you could write down the upgrade Git modules section in the internal release doc?
Yeah, but not today. Is there an issue?
No, we have to create one in Flux too.
What repository we're thinking of?
So
Or what
here
document?
is the link to what I wrote around upgrading Kubernetes modules. And I see after this, another section here in the same doc, upgrade Git modules, explain where they come from and what's the upgrade procedure in which order. First, the base image, then source controller, then finally image automation controller.
Yeah, I can create an issue and then think about updating it in the following days.
Yeah, the thing is, so I tried here in this document to capture all the repos and all the dependencies that are involved in a release. But now we have this new repo where we set the binaries for libgit2, that should also be in here because it's something that's, you know, core part of what we do right now. So yeah, we should add it here, at least mention it.
Okay, what else? I made I put a couple of links in the doc for just action items, but I didn't assign them to anybody. So if you all want to self-assign, or if we want to self-assign, that's great.
Are we doing a release today? Batch release?
Yeah, you'll do it.
Okay. 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 I was
Make
waiting.
sure to pull the latest main branch.
I even renamed my the remote from origin to upstream, but so at some places they expect it to be origin to just avoid pushing things by mistake.
I did it. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that that using the GitHub CLI tool, the GH tool, basically that convention is built in now, where upstream is always upstream and your fork is origin rather than your username. So that's an interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good, helpful.
Yeah. Less chances of force pushing to main.
Right. Oh my.
Yeah, the thing is you cannot block the protection, right? If you are an admin of a repo, you just bypass all protections.
I think in branch protection, there's also the setting, at least for GitHub. I don't know about other providers, other Git providers, but
Also enforce for admin.
to also enforce enforce that for admin as well. So yeah, when I set those up,
Yeah, we have that.
Oh, we do.
We have include administrators, enforce all config restriction above for administrators.
Okay.
But I don't know. At some point, Flagger contributor pushed to main. Maybe he disabled this and put it back. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, mistakes can happen. You have to be sure if you do a force push. Look at the branch first.
Right. Yeah. Git remote -v is like the hero for everyone.
Yeah, or you can have some, I don't know, plugin in your console that always shows the branch name. That's what
that doesn't work. I have that, and I've pushed to main too. But it's more about branch protection. Like sometimes we had the administrator flag disabled, right? And I've admin rights to the rights of most repositories. So then you're just gonna cancel your push commit really fast because then it doesn't come through. But since I have like a 1 gigabyte connection, I can't cancel it fast enough anymore. So I need to rely on.
Yeah, the measure twice, cut once approach, right? Yeah.
Need an undo button, like in Gmail when you send a mail, there's an undo button.
How would that work? Having packages wait in a queue and then pull them back or something?
To give you some buffer time. A minute.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
It can be a hook, right? Git hook.
I think I'm the only one who hasn't volunteered a story about how I messed this up yet, so I'll go next. If you go back a few releases in Flux v1, you find there's one where the fix was not really published and the changelog has lots of things crossed out. You have to go to the next release if you want the fix. I think this is a really easy mistake to make.
Oh, you didn't go to Docker Hub, right?
No, that was a separate issue. That was a totally separate issue because the build failed. This was, I was putting out a patch release and I forgot to merge master back to the release branch before I cut a release. So.
And you cut the release with the same release from before.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Hide came out with a really good workflow for Flux One, but it's so easy to mess it up because it's complicated. Yeah.
The thing about a checklist is you have to read it.
That's my mistake. I understand. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, at some point we'll have to do the same for Flux 2 after we go GA, because then we'll have to backport patches, CVs, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I know I will be really happy when it's done. It's just that I don't want to spend so much time on something that touches CI. It's just, I know that within like 6 hours, you will be frustrated by debugging why something isn't going as planned or why the chain isn't working. It's
yeah.
I've been thinking about just using one of the more popular README changelog generators, and then just chaining them with a couple of lines of bash and simple templating through piping, so that you can add the handwritten note on top of the auto-generated thing, and then just forget about all the additional magic that you want to have happening here right now. Because all the simple changelog generator at least provides you the option to categorize based on labels. So if we would then just do one round of aligning all the labels and making sense of the categories across repositories where they overlap and where it makes sense. And then just set up the rules once. You already are there for like 50% of it, but. And then the big question is the Flux 2 combined changelog, because that's what everyone wants in the end. How are we going to chain together those already pretty lengthy automated changelogs and then make that pretty again? Because that's the major problem, I think. Because the other problem you have, due to all the changelogs having their own introductions, which are written as introductions, combining those bits of text basically doesn't give you a nice story, I think. I think it will really, well, weird in a way, because every time you're going from intro to intro to intro, which doesn't make it a story as a whole.
Yeah, and if a release contains all the controllers, you'll have like this pre-release does this pre-release does this pre-release, and it's like that 8 times. And then the CLI things.
Yeah, so what you probably want to do is parse the markdown, and that's where it becomes tricky already. Find all the headings that are the same and group them by headings, then combine all those changelog all those pull requests or issue references again, but create subcategories per controller so that people can still have an overview of what changed per controller, and then skip all the intro things, I think, and let someone write a changelog entry for Flux as a whole, and then magically generate that and then publish it, which is the least, well, yeah, the more annoying part, I think, to solve.
Yeah, parsing the markdown will not be easy.
No, and then grouping it, and then
Because it's not always like we don't always have a single introduction in overview phrase. If you look at, I don't know, when I released the server-side applying customized controller, the overview was like a full page of this is all that happened. So, yeah.
yeah, and the other issue is, I was thinking, like, what if you would regenerate the change logs, but with a different config based on the state of the tag, as in Git, basically. But I know some of the changelog generation tools do combinations of tricks with the GitHub API, and then combine the query with the now timestamp of the generation thing, and that makes your changelog generation different sometimes from the one that you published, which is another issue.
Yeah, so the tool that we currently use for Flux to publish the changelog of the CLI, it will just keep pull requests that are opened before. So you open the pull request now, it's not merged, but meanwhile we do a release, then we merge the pull request and we do another release. That pull request is not included in this release because it looks at the timestamp and excludes everything from the last release it knows, right? So I know about that, and I go and edit manually the release page because I'm aware, oh, I've merged that. It was before, then we did the release, and I come back and manually edit those. But yeah, that's also an annoying thing.
The problem is that the other popular tool, because there are 2 tools, I think, is less feature rich, I think, or more annoying to configure. So you either have a nice configuration and weird things happening on the generation side, or you have a less rich generation, which is simple but working.
But yeah, until we sort out the automation for Flux to change logs, what is currently required right now, and our user requires this, is not me. What we have to do every time there is some new feature or there is a change after a Go releaser creates the release, you have to manually go in there, edit the release description and write down a change log for users. A good example is 0.21, and where I wrote down how do you rotate your SSH deploy key in there. So yeah, that's the current situation right now. We have to go there, edit the release, and add all the informations in the information that end users require, like the when we changed the SSH key algorithm. Yeah, we had to tell them how to rotate their current keys. And no matter how much we automate, we still have to do this stuff. Because yeah, in the end, release change logs are for humans, not other machinery. So humans must write them.
Right, well, we have 1 more minute left. We've used this time well. Is there anything else that we wanted to note for either for next time or
No, I think we're good.
okay. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And I'll see you soon, Stefan.
Yeah.